Morning on April 10th, 2026, Ashanti Allen's mother received a text message from her daughter's phone. It said, "I'm leaving. I'm not coming back." She read it and she knew immediately that something was wrong. Not because of what the message said, but because of what it didn't sound like. It didn't sound like Ashanti. Her daughter would not send a message like that. Not at 3:50 in the morning. Not without a phone call first. Not without a conversation. Her daughter was 23 years old, 8 months pregnant, experiencing a high-risk pregnancy, and she would not send a message like that and just disappear. Her mother went to her apartment. The car was gone. Ashanti was gone. And the phone that had sent that text was already in the hands of the man who had taken her. What Ashanti's mother did not know, what none of the people who loved Ashanti Allen knew as they began the desperate search that would consume the next 6 days of their lives, was that 33 minutes before that text was sent from her daughter's phone at 3:17 a.m., Kevin Faux had placed a FaceTime call to someone else. He was outside, in a wooded area, sweating. And according to the charging documents that prosecutors would later file in Harris County Court, he told the person on the other end of that call that he had killed someone. He showed them what was behind him. He set the phone down, and then he ended the call. That witness sat with what they had seen for 4 days before they called the police. And when they did, the case against Kevin Faux began to fall into place with a speed and a precision that prosecutors would later describe as overwhelming. This is the story of Ashanti Allen, 23 years old, 8 months pregnant with her first child, a kind, quiet young woman who was working and trying to live her life according to everyone who knew her, a daughter who was her father's only girl, a mother who never got to hold her son, and a woman whose death, as devastating as it is on its own terms, is also the story of a system that had Kevin Faux in custody, sentenced him for assaulting her, and then released him 2 months earlier than his sentence required, because of a credit used to manage jail populations, and sent him back into the world and back into Ashanti Allen's life. Welcome to Behind the Evidence. This channel goes past the headline and into the full picture, the person, the pattern, the system failure, and the truth that deserves to be told completely. Subscribe now if you are not already here. We cover cases like this every week, and this one, every single layer of it, demands to be heard. Now let's go back to the beginning. Ashanti Allen grew up in Houston, Texas. She was 23 years old at the time of her death, which means she was at the very beginning of the adult life she was building. She was working. She was trying to live life. Those are the words that the people who knew her reached for when reporters asked them to describe her, not because they were the only words available, but because they were the accurate ones. She was not a person defined by drama or conflict, or the kind of patterns that sometimes show up in the backgrounds of cases like this one. She was a young woman doing what young women at 23 do, building something, moving forward, making plans. The plans by April 2026 included a baby. She was 8 months pregnant. It was a high-risk pregnancy, which meant she was already navigating additional medical monitoring, additional appointments, and additional layers of the careful management that a complicated pregnancy requires. Her father, Edward Allen, told reporters that he had been about to go buy a car seat and a stroller for his grandson, that he was preparing to become a grandfather, that Ashanti was excited, that her life was going somewhere. He used those exact words. Her life was going somewhere. And then he said what every parent says in that moment when the specific horror of what has happened has not yet fully arrived, when the body and the mind are still somewhere between knowing and being able to process what they know. He said until, unfortunately, this happened. Kevin Faux was 24 years old. He was the father of Ashanti's unborn child, and his presence in her life was not a new development and not a simple one. Their relationship had a history that, once the investigation made it visible, told a story that the people who loved Ashanti were not fully aware of until it was too late to use that information to protect her. In 2019, Kevin Faux was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He was convicted on that charge and served 2 years in prison. While awaiting trial on that original case, he had also been charged with assaulting another woman entirely, a charge that was eventually dismissed when he was convicted on the first case. That is the criminal background that Faux brought into his relationship with Ashanti Allen, a prior conviction for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a prior assault charge involving a different woman, a documented pattern of violence against women that predated Ashanti by years. In September 2025, Faux was charged with 2 counts of assault against Ashanti herself. He was jailed in connection with those charges. He was eventually sentenced in February 2026 to 280 days behind bars, a sentence that, on paper, would have kept him incarcerated until approximately July 2026. But Kevin Faux did not serve 280 days. He received what is known in the Texas criminal justice system as a 2-for-1 credit, a mechanism commonly used to manage jail population levels, which effectively cut his sentence in half. He was released months earlier than his sentence required. He was released approximately 2 months before Ashanti Allen disappeared, 2 months before she was found at Chimney Rock Park. 2 months before, Edward Allen stood in front of cameras and said his body was completely numb. Ashanti's father spoke about this publicly and directly. He stood in front of reporters and asked the question that the entire case demands an answer to. Why do we keep letting these people get out and walk around here? He was not speaking abstractly. He was speaking about a specific man, with a specific criminal history, who had been convicted of assaulting his daughter, sentenced to nearly 10 months in jail, and released approximately 5 months into that sentence because the jail needed space. And 2 months after that release, his daughter was gone. Ashanti's mother spoke to reporters as well. She said she did not know anything about the incidents between Faux and Ashanti until her daughter went missing. She said that if she had known, he would never have been around her daughter. That statement is one of the most important things anyone says in this entire case, because it tells us something that the formal record of assaults and charges and convictions does not always communicate clearly. The people closest to Ashanti, the people who loved her most and who were positioned to help her, did not have access to the information that would have allowed them to assess the danger she was in. They did not know about the prior assault conviction from 2019. They did not know about the assault charges from September 2025 until their daughter was already missing. This is a pattern that researchers who study intimate partner violence document consistently. Victims frequently do not share the full extent of what they are experiencing with their families. Sometimes because they are ashamed. Sometimes because they are protecting the relationship or the partner. Sometimes because they genuinely believe the situation is improving or manageable. Sometimes it's because they are afraid of what disclosure might produce, not just from the partner but within their own family. And sometimes because they have been specifically isolated from the people who would respond most strongly to the information. Isolation is one of the first tools a controlling partner deploys. Whatever the specific reason in Ashanti's case, the effect was the same. The people who could have helped her most had the least information about the danger she was facing. Now let's walk through what the charging documents and investigative record reveal about the night of April 9th into the early morning hours of April 10th, 2026, because the sequence of events documented in those records is one of the most detailed and most damning evidentiary pictures in any case this channel has covered. At 3:17 a.m. on April 10th, Kevin Faux initiated a FaceTime video call. The person he called was someone in his circle, someone whose identity has been protected in the public reporting but whose account of what they saw forms a central pillar of the prosecution's case. According to the charging documents, Faux was outside when the call connected. He was in a wooded area. He was sweating. He told the person on the other end of that call that he had killed someone. He showed them a body. He set the phone down. He ended the call. And then at 3:50 a.m., 33 minutes later, Ashanti Allen's mother received a text message from her daughter's phone that said, "I'm leaving. I'm not coming back. The text was not from Ashanti. Ashanti was already gone. The text was sent by Kevin Faux from her phone in what investigators would later characterize as an attempt to create the impression that Ashanti had left voluntarily to buy time, to make her disappearance look like a personal decision rather than what it actually was. It did not work, because Ashanti's mother knew her daughter. She read the message and she felt it immediately, the wrongness of it, the way it did not match the voice of the person she had raised. She went to the apartment. The car was gone, and she began making calls. Ashanti was reported missing to the Houston police. The investigation began. Search teams were deployed. Texas EquiSearch, the volunteer organization that has conducted thousands of searches for missing persons in Texas and across the country, was brought in to assist. The community watched and waited and shared her photograph and held out the hope that she would be found. That the high-risk pregnancy that complicated every aspect of what had happened to her would somehow still produce a living mother and a living child. For 6 days, that hope held in some form for the people who loved her. For 6 days, Ashanti's family, the search teams, and the investigators were working toward the possibility that the outcome was still open. On April 16, 2026, at approximately 9 a.m., Ashanti Allen's body was found near Chimney Rock Park in southwest Houston, close to a bayou. She was 6 days gone. Surveillance footage from the area captured a man matching Kevin Faux's description in the vicinity of the park. A cord was found wrapped around her neck at least twice, tied in a knot. The cause of death documented in the charging materials was consistent with that physical evidence. Her father got the call. He said he could not put into words how he felt. He said his body was completely numb. He said he knew it was going to hit him. He said it was going to hit him hard because he loved his baby girl. She was his only girl, and she had been carrying his only grandson. He lost both of them on the same night. A 23-year-old daughter and an unborn grandchild he had been preparing to welcome into the world, shopping for the car seat, the stroller, the things that mark a life about to begin. Kevin Faux was not in Houston when Ashanti's body was found. He had left Texas. He had taken her debit card with him. He had used it during his flight, a trail that investigators and the U.S. Marshals Service would later trace through the transaction records. He made his way to Louisiana, where he apparently believed he had enough distance between himself and Houston to avoid what was coming. He was wrong. On April 20, 2026, the U.S. Marshals Service New Orleans Field Office arrested Kevin Faux without incident. He was taken into custody in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, where he was held at the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center with a hold preventing him from bonding out. Prosecutors in Texas filed a motion to deny him bail under Proposition 3, a measure approved by Texas voters in 2025 that allows the denial of bail in certain violent offense cases. He is facing capital murder charges, not only for the death of Ashanti Allen, but also for the death of her unborn child. Texas law recognizes the killing of an unborn child as a separate homicidal act when committed during the killing of the mother. Kevin Faux faces 2 capital murder charges. He is awaiting extradition back to Texas. The FaceTime witness. Let's return to that person for a moment, because their role in this case is one of the most significant and most psychologically complex elements of the entire investigation. Someone received a video call at 3:17 in the morning. They answered it. They saw and heard what Kevin Faux allegedly showed and told them, and then they sat with that information for 4 days before they contacted the police. 4 days. That gap is something investigators have noted in the case record. The witness ultimately came forward on April 14th, 4 days after the call. What kept them from calling immediately is not something the public record has fully addressed. Fear of retaliation is a documented and legitimate factor in cases where witnesses have direct knowledge of a violent act committed by someone known to them. The possibility that the witness did not immediately understand the full gravity of what they had seen. the possibility that they hoped the situation would resolve itself in some other way. Whatever the specific reason, when they did come forward, the information they provided gave investigators a critical piece of the timeline and a direct evidentiary link between Kevin Faux and the death of Ashanti Allen in the hours before her body was found. The charging documents also reference surveillance video from the area around Chimney Rock Park that captured a man matching Faux's description in the vicinity of the bayou. Combined with the FaceTime witness account, the text message sent from Ashanti's phone, the use of her debit card during his flight, and the prior assault convictions, prosecutors described the evidentiary case against Kevin Faux as one that established his guilt comprehensively and across multiple independent streams of evidence. Now let's talk about the system failure at the center of this case, because it is not a peripheral detail. It is not a footnote to the larger tragedy. It is the specific and identifiable mechanism through which a man who had been convicted of assaulting Ashanti Allen was placed back in proximity to her in time to kill her. The 2-for-1 credit that reduced Kevin Faux's sentence from 280 days to approximately 140 days is not a rare or unusual instrument. It is a commonly used mechanism within the Texas jail system, specifically designed to address jail overcrowding by effectively counting each day of served time as 2 days toward a sentence. It is applied administratively, not judicially. It does not require a hearing. It does not require notification to the victim. It does not require any assessment of the specific risk that early release poses to the person whom the incarcerated individual was convicted of harming. It is a population management tool. And in the case of Kevin Faux and Ashanti Allen, it was a population management tool that put a violent offender with a documented pattern of assaulting women back on the street 2 months earlier than his sentence required, and back into the life of the woman he had already been convicted of harming. Ashanti's father asked the question that this mechanism demands be asked. Why do we keep letting these people out? It is a question that does not have a simple answer, because jail overcrowding is a real and serious problem across the American criminal justice system, and the mechanisms used to address it exist because the alternatives, building more jails, reducing sentences legislatively, and investing in alternatives to incarceration, are expensive, slow, and politically complicated. But those systemic realities do not erase the specific, individual consequence that the 2-for-1 credit produced in this case. A woman is dead. Her child is dead. Her father is numb. Her mother did not know the full history of the man her daughter was involved with, and the man responsible for all of it served half his sentence for the previous assault against her and came back for her before the full sentence had run its course. Ashanti Allen was 8 months pregnant. She was experiencing a high-risk pregnancy. She was working and trying to live her life according to everyone who loved her. She was a kind, quiet young woman according to the people who knew her. She was her father's only girl and the mother of his only grandson. She was 23 years old, which means she had barely started. She had the entire span of what her life was going to be still ahead of her. She was having a baby. She had a car seat that was going to be purchased. She had a stroller picked out. She had a future that everyone around her could see and that she was actively building toward. Kevin Faux, the man who was supposed to be the father of her child, the man who had already been convicted of assaulting her and served half a sentence for it, allegedly called someone on FaceTime at 3:17 in the morning and showed them what he had done. He sent a fake goodbye text from her phone to her mother. He took her debit card and drove to Louisiana. He used her card while she was still missing, while her family was still searching, while Texas EquuSearch was still in the field looking for a young woman who was 8 months pregnant and had not come home. He was found. He was arrested. He is facing 2 capital murder charges in the state of Texas. The case is moving toward trial. The evidence against him by every available account is substantial and documented across multiple independent sources. There will be a courtroom. There will be a legal proceeding. There will be, at some point, a verdict and a sentence. And none of that will give Edward Allen his baby girl back. None of it will give him his grandson. None of it will undo the 6 days that Ashanti's family spent searching. None of it will make the text message that arrived at 3:50 in the morning something other than what it was, a lie sent from a dead woman's phone by the man who killed her. What this case can do, and what this video exists to make happen, is ensure that the specific mechanism that enabled the final chapter of this story is visible and understood. The 241 credit that released Kevin Faux 2 months early is a policy. Policies can be changed. Not easily, not quickly, not without the kind of sustained public pressure and legislative attention that requires people to know that the policy exists and what its consequences are. Ashanti Allen's death is the consequence of a policy. Her father's numb body is the consequence of a policy. His missing grandson is the consequence of a policy. And if enough people understand that, the policy becomes harder to maintain without accountability. If you or someone you know is in a relationship where prior violence has occurred, where a partner has been charged or convicted of any assault, please take that information seriously, and please share it with the people who can help you plan for your safety. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available at 1-800-799-7233, free and confidential, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by call, text, and chat at the hotline.org. Safety planning is available. Resources are available. And the people on the other end of that line understand that leaving is complicated, and that the period after leaving is often the most dangerous of all. Subscribe to Behind the Evidence. Share this video for Ashanti, for her father who said his body went numb and knew the weight of what was coming was going to hit him hard, for the grandson who never got to arrive. Behind the evidence there is always more, and we are always going to find it.